IT workers, what is the most ridiculous your IT? You have to fix this request you've received? Old story. Back in the early 90s, all of Alaska's comms was via satellite. We would get notices from our providers when a solar storm was going to slow down our throughput. I went upstairs to our finance and accounting chief to tell her the nightly processes might be late due to the storm. Her response was, your IT just fix it. Never let her forget that she saw me as a god. Dang Jackie, I can't control the weather. Our IT help desk, before it was renamed the support desk, eventually ended up keeping fluorescent tubes and whiteboard markers in stock because people would send complaints to the CEO that we were refusing to help when we asked them to contact the office manager for these things. The flip side is that the CEO eventually created a new email address for people to send complaints directly to him. Very few people knew that this special CEO complaints email address actually got forwarded to the office manager. People have the capacity for such unimaginable greatness and such hard to believe stupidity. I was personally once reported for sabotaging a specific secretary by refusing to fix her printer. It was printing garbage. Turns out she installed an Epson color printer driver from the disk that came with her friend's new color printer on her Win95 computer so that her Mono HP DeskJet printer would also print color. She reported me the third time I uninstalled the bad driver and asked her not to do it again. People have a capacity for such unimaginable greatness and such hard to believe stupidity. Great quote. I've somehow become the Apple guy at my work. We recently received a batch of brand new iPad Pros and within a week, I received a repair request due to a screen malfunctioning. Turns out by screen malfunctioning they meant completely destroyed, shattered, like it had been continuously hit with a hammer. Lady is giving vague explanations about what happened, talking about how it might have fallen off her desk onto the carpeted floor, but apparently this is something I can fix. She needed it for a meeting that afternoon. I had to explain that this isn't something we can fix, that I'll need to go through Apple for a replacement device. Shocking news, apparently. Back in my very early career I had this customer named Mr. Windsor. He was this grumpy older guy and everything was an emergency and he was always yelling about some IT issue he was having. The most memorable is he called us livid over some site he was getting a forbidden error on. How dare we forbid him from going to his website? I had to patiently explain that there was an issue with that site and he'd have to contact the owner. About an hour later he calls back demanding to speak to me personally. He got an email saying he had a fatal error. How dare we wish him to die? Finally figured out that he'd misspelled the email address and the fatal error was coming from the mail system. I just looked up the number to the web company and told him to call. I'd love to know how that conversation went. Anyway, a few days before Christmas we get a phone call. It's Mr. Windsor. He is slurring his words and clearly been drinking something festive. He called to apologize for being a miserable old duffer and thank us for being patient. Back to his usual miserable self after Christmas, of course. Interesting character. The power went out in our building and the owner of the company wanted to know what we were doing to get the computers up. Answer: when the power comes on. Early in my career when I still did home user work, I had a client request an on-site because every time I go get a beer, my computer crashes. Wouldn't crash when he went to the bathroom or anything, just when he went to get a beer. So I'm staring at this computer and I can see in the logs that there are crashes but nothing that would help me understand what was causing it, because it's not the beers. Finally I'm grasping at straws and ask him to show me what he does when it crashes. He says, I told you, it crashes when I go get a beer. So I'm like, just humor me. He sits down in the chair and then stands up, walks clean to the other side of the house. Huge open living room thing with one of those weird sunken conversation pit things and heavy shag carpet. Walks up to this built-in mini fridge, opens it, grabs a beer, closes it, starts walking back and opens the beer, and the computer takes a crap. What the frick? Took about 30 seconds of feeling like the world had gone mad and this dude was like some sort of weird beer magician. When the light bulb came on, the mini fridge was probably on the same circuit as the PC. The compressor in the mini fridge was going bad and drawing too much from the circuit when it kicked in, brown out, and the computer would crash. Dude was right all along. His computer would crash whenever he went to get a beer. I was asked to fix a cabinet once. I don't mean like a server rack or anything. I mean a little wooden cabinet with shelves and stuff. Lady called to report her monitor wasn't working. After troubleshooting and asking her multiple times if everything was plugged in, she finally pipes up that the monitor doesn't have the light on. The monitor wasn't plugged in and she wanted me to wake a guy up at 3 AM to do it because she was dressed too nicely to do it herself because she was preparing for a meeting at 6 AM. Told her to do it herself because I was not about to wake up the on-call for that. She complained to our director and he literally laughed at her and her reasoning for wanting the on-call sent out, and she is now banned from calling in. Props to your director for doing their job correctly. I had a doctor ask me why the state's death certificate database didn't work for him over the weekend. Mind you, I didn't work for the state. I worked for a practice he did contract work for. I told him they were probably offline for maintenance when he tried to log in, but that wasn't good enough. He insisted I get to hold of the state's IT department and find out what happened. The database was working just fine when he asked BTW, as he brought the working site up on his iPad right in front of me. So a week goes by and he is in my office again and asks if I had any luck with the state IT department. I had completely forgotten about his absurd request, so I said the following. As it turns out, I did. They told me some clod in their department decided to microwave a hot pocket on his lunch break but accidentally left a fork in with it. The microwave blew a breaker that controlled the server room. Knocked everything offline for a bit until they got it back up and running. Everything should be fine now. He was satisfied and walked away. Sometimes, people don't care what the answer is, just as long as they get one. Correction. Sometimes, people don't care what the answer is, as long as it is the answer they want. Get an email from a user one day. The numbers on my keyboard don't work. Alright, not a lot to go on, but probably easier to just give them a new keyboard. I look up the user to figure out where I need to go with a keyboard and see their past logins are only on a work laptop. Alright, better actually email them then, just to confirm. All the other keys on the keyboard work but not when you use the numbers on either the top row or on the pad to the right. 2 days later, 9 AM, user responds, just the pad on the right. This is really annoying. Can you come take care of this quickly? Alright, you took your sweet butt time for that reply, but maybe you were out or busy. If it's just the number pad, probably his num lock turned off. I look up the model number. Definitely has a num lock key, so I emailed back at 9:15 AM. It could just be the num lock has turned off. There should be a key called num with a lock on it just above the number pad. Could you press that first then try to use the numbers and let me know the results? Next day, user submits a ticket, numbers on keyboard don't work. Frustrated at this point, I send another email. Is this concerning the issue with the number pad? Were you able to try the num lock key, and if so, how did that turn out? 2 days later, user sends a new email directly to me and CCs the CEO of our 10,000 employee company. Email says I've been trying to have this issue resolved for over a week now. Can somebody please come fix my laptop? The keyboard does not work. I just stare at my screen for a minute. Who the heck is this person? System says they are just a CSR. Do they know the CEO? Have I really done anything wrong here? After the initial shock and self-doubt, I realize I'm totally fine and this guy has got to be the biggest moron in the world. So I walk over to my boss's office and let him know the situation. He's just as dumbfounded when I mention the ceasing the CEO part. Says he'll look into it, but for now just go down and fix the issue. So I walk over to this guy's station and he looks like he's 18. He tells me the same things I already knew from the emails. I lean over him, open a notepad, press a couple keys, and as I suspect everything works fine but the number pad is moving the cursor around. Press the num lock key and then type again, numbers appearing. I just deadpan the guy, need anything else, and he of course doesn't understand and just says no, but I can't believe it took you guys a week to figure that out. Knowing nothing good comes from this, I just say have a good one and leave. Get back to my office. Boss is laughing his butt off as I tell him what happened. He follows up with an email to the guy's supervisor, ceasing their manager and myself as well, basically retelling the story in full. Last I heard, the manager chewed out the supervisor and the supervisor chewed out the CSR. Damned if I know if an idiot that thick learned anything though. Ugh. I hate the passive aggressive CCIing. When that happens at my work, I CC the IT director who is personal friends with the owners of the company and had a single digit employee number. For reference, mind 6 digits. That tends to shut down any bulls real quick. Years ago I worked for a rather large ISP as a tech lead. A residential DSL customer called in demanding to speak to a supervisor because his internet was down and he was going to miss out on some multi-million-dollar deal he couldn't get on the internet. He kept yelling at me throughout the call and demanded I fix it immediately. While troubleshooting the issue I could see that I couldn't reach the DSL AM his connection ran through. I advised him I would have to reach out to a dispatch center to have a tech go take a look at it. At some point he informed me that on his way home he saw that a vehicle had run off the road into one of our boxes and it had caught fire. He still said he was planning on suing our company if he wasn't able to be online to make this supposed deal of his. I passive-aggressively suggested he go to a Starbucks and wished him well with the lawsuit. Honestly, I tend to just slam down the phone when people threaten to sue me. Sometimes I wish a bee would give me something to do. A couple simple ones. I got called in to repair a broken printer. The guy was pretty livid as he was trying to print in a hurry. Turns out it ran out of paper. Even worse, I had my boss lose his crap on me that his computer didn't work and made the comment that nothing ever works around here, hinting that I failed at my job. I went into his office and found that he didn't turn it on. I pushed the power button and all I got was an O. IT support has to be one of the worst jobs. Stupid butt people. And anytime something like a mouse battery dies you're a pose. One of my first jobs was in the 90s. I was senior IT admin for a medium-sized company, and on my day off, the CEO called. I had to get in cause the mail wasn't working and also the banking software didn't work. This CEO was primarily responsible for the financial department, so especially this last part was hurting him. When I came in, said CEO was really flaming, basically burning the entire IT department of 3 ppl as being incompetent, overpaid fuck-ups, and all the loss of business revenue should come out of our pockets, etc. etc. So during this lovely tirade, I come in, and in a few seconds I realize we have a problem with the internet connection. Keep in mind, these were the 90s, so we had a dual ISDN connection and a dial-up modem connected to it. I run a few tests, and instead of the common modem sounds, I hear some low-res voice on the line. I connect a regular phone to it, listen to it, and then gave it to the CEO saying, "It's for you." After that, the CEO said nothing, and used his own mobile to manage the finances. What did the ISDN phone say? "Due to not paying your bloody bill, this line is disconnected. If you want to reinstate this service you have to pay XX and admin costs, etc. etc. I went home after that, with a very big grin, and started looking for another job. My dad used to work in software development. One of his co-workers had to call IT because his computer wasn't turning on. Turns out his power strip was plugged into itself. He never lived that one down. The good old infinite power loop, commonly implemented by sales and marketing departments worldwide. Drove for 2 hours to replace a touchscreen monitor that had stopped responding. Turns out they were wearing gloves. We used to log these type of callouts as ID10T errors. Previous IT for a US-based online bank. The sheer amount of calls regarding unsupported devices or user error that customers considered my fault was staggering. We had to accept and troubleshoot every call regardless, and would guess at most 15% of calls ended up being an actual tech issue rather than PEBCAC. Problem exists between chair and keyboard. My favorite though, was a man cursing up a storm that he was taking his business elsewhere. He was traveling and his mobile device did not allow access to our site. He had also apparently bought at least 5 that the previous rep had failed to make work phones from a street vendor before calling tech. He refused to allow me to go over the basics, like OS and providers, and kept saying, "Just do your job." After at least half an hour, but probably longer, I finally was allowed to start with the basic steps. One of the first questions was OS and provider, all of which were 10 years out of date or were names unfamiliar to me and my list of supported devices. Frustrated, this man complained about where he was stuck unable to access his online bank. I don't remember the exact location, but I do remember my sadistic glee. This man was vacationing in an OFAC-sanctioned country. Basically he was vacationing somewhere like in Korea or the DMR that the US has issued sanctions against, and our policy did not allow his card or online access in that country. His response? I don't care. Fix it. Thankfully, after another half hour of me explaining I could not change security policy or the fact he was in a blocked country, he escalated to my supervisor, which made it no longer my problem. Like, tech illiterate aside, you need to have some sort of brain damage to be this dumb. I work in web development maintenance. I got a call from a client who was absolutely livid when I told her that she could not take the hyperlinked text from her web page, transfer it over to their print ad, and still have it function like a link. Posted this before, but I was a remote tech and had a woman call me and wanted me to drive 6+ hours to her facility to turn on her computer, because hitting the power button was not her job. Worked for a small bank. 2 IT staff including me drove 60 miles out to a branch to fix an issue, and while I was used to getting hit with a million saved up while you're here issues, I was not prepared for the toilet is acting weird. Can you look at it while you're here? Got a call to remove a plug on a radio and push the wire through a small vent in the cabinet because the wire was unsightly. I did this while 15 executives watched. None of them knew how to change a plug and had never even seen the inside of one. But because it had a wire, it was its responsibility. I was called to fix a point of sale issue for a small coffee shop. The computer was fine. The wall outlet tested negative for power. The owner asked how long till I could fix it. After explaining that she needs an electrician, she started screaming at me and demanding that I fix it because it is my job. After weeks of receiving phone calls from her screaming and vulgar emails being sent, we came by, took the computer system back and cancelled her contract. Not gonna lie, that would be my last resort of handling it. I would have offered to do it as a side job for XHR amount, and whatever the electrician charges, hire said electrician and then paycheck for doing nothing except finding an electrician. All sorts. It wasn't a demand, but I was once called to help get a fish out of a fish tank. It had decided to go on a suicide mission into the pumps and I had to dismantle it all to get it back out. It died. I'm regularly asked to help hang doors, fix locks, program thermostats and boilers, change time on clocks, even repair people's spectacles, shoes, and anything they carry that could break and look technical. Heck, helping people with their broken down cars, or breaking into them when they lose their keys, fixing gates, all sorts. Some of it has electronics which people assume is an IT specialism when it's not, but often it's just the hands-on nature that they're after. Most people realize it's not my job, but we have the tools, the eyesight, so many people with bad eyesight, the fine hand control, the know-how, the ability to find manuals and tutorials quickly, and the work surfaces to do it on. Shark bait. Hoo ha ha. One place I worked, it was pretty much if it got electricity, it was IT's issue. We had to fix the water fountain that wouldn't stop running. We had to fix the coffee machine. Could you tell them no? I had a lady who brought her laptop in for a simple software repair. I fixed it and get it back to her. She calls me directly 2 days later and is absolutely irate that her camera isn't working. I explained to her that I never touched her camera, but if she wanted to come back and I would gladly take a look. She didn't want that. Even though my location is all walk up and no remote support, she absolutely wanted me to remote in and figure it out because it was working before you. I worked on it. I put her on hold, and as I was looking up her machine name, I remembered she had electrical tape over her camera, so I picked up the phone and said, I seem to recall tape over the camera. Is that still there? She promptly hung up. And that, kids, is why daddy drinks till he passes out. This isn't the most ridiculous call I have ever got, but the dumbest that I had to go into work for after hours. Got called at midnight because our only PC started beeping, so I turned it off and now it won't come back on. This is for our life flight operators, so seemingly important. Tried to get them to troubleshoot with me over the phone, but got told this is an issue for someone with a computer science degree, and since I don't have one, you need to come and fix it. All I could get out of them was that it was still beeping when she tried to turn it on, and no, I won't try again because it has gave me a headache listening to it. Drove the 45 minutes into work and found that they had pushed the keyboard under a cable so it was holding down a key. Moved the keyboard and magically the beeping stopped. They were really apologetic though. They also had 3 PCS and only 2 operators at the time. I work in the networking department as a support technician. I had a lady yelling at me and telling me our network service is totally crap. After calming her down, I found out that her TV is showing a blue screen and won't switch channels. The Wi-Fi is working more than fine on her phone and her kid's Xbox as he is playing an online game while we were talking. I was expected to fix her old TV as it was a network problem. The only way I can get these people's attention is this is out of scope. You've already called me out. I'm required to document this in detail and your department should expect a bill expense. When they push back, it's not my decision. But you should expect a bill expense with your name on it. You were the one who demanded the service. Work in networks and used to share an office with people who just basically took situation reports. So when they were out of the office for lunch or called in sick, we'd answer their phones and take notes for when they got back out next shift came in. So our guy calls out one night and I take a call that some generator somewhere went out. Okay cool, write it in the log and pass it on for the next shift. Then boss ends up questioning me on what I did about the generator. Like, what do you expect me to do? Ping it? Would you like me to get its MAC address? It literally has nothing to do with my job. Got a call the scanner in HR was broken. Thought to myself, we don't have a scanner in HR. Go to the office. The lady has Word open and is holding a document to the screen hitting enter repeatedly. I thought no one would believe me, so I brought about 5 other techs along to corroborate. What? I worked the help desk at my grad school. We had the power to reset passwords on student and faculty accounts, ensure computers were interacting with the network properly, etc. Got a call from an elderly professor that he was having trouble logging into his account. Okay, I figured, I'll reset your password. Didn't work. Nothing I did remotely worked. Eventually I had to actually go to this guy's house. Many of the faculty lived in special on-campus housing, where his computer was already at the problem page. Yahoo Mail. This guy thought I had the IT powers to fix his Yahoo password. He had already locked himself out of his account by entering the wrong password too many times, and for some reason the forgot password link wasn't working. He became irate when I explained to him that there was nothing I could do because his Yahoo Mail account has nothing to do with our school. I'm not an IT, but I'm the go-to IT guy during lockdown. Someone called the other day from the other side of the region to tell me her mouse wasn't moving when she moved it. The guy there the day before had taken in his own trackball and forgotten to swap them back. I like to cover my co-worker's mouse sensor with a sticky note because it always takes him a minute to figure it out, even though I've been doing it periodically for 5 years. I'll start. One time somebody at a company asked me, why isn't the microwave working? You're in IT after all. Fix it. I thought they were joking, but after a bit of deliberation, they were either serious or very committed to the role. Ages ago at my job we finally got a legit IT ticketing system. The very first ticket was someone saying that the bulb had burned out in their lamp and wanting an IT person to come and replace the bulb. I got a lot of mileage out of that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.